Factual here, and hello, it's Azure Factual here, and I've got a special hangout for you all with a fantastic person called Nick Josling, and we're just going to start the event in just a moment. Got a nice presentation for you guys today, so I think you'll enjoy this. Okay, so on your screens you should see the first slide. So, hi there, it's Azure Factual here from successfulpropertyinvestmentsecrets.com, where investors confess their best kept secrets, tips, systems and resources that enable anyone to quickly build an income stream from property. And today I have the pleasure of being alongside Mr. Nick Josling, who is the host of the Bristol Property Investors Network meetings here in Bristol, and he is a professional property investor and professional property sourcer himself. So hello Nick, how are you?
Azu, morning to you. I'm fine, thanks very much. Good to be with you.
Good stuff, great. Now let's jump right into it. So Nick, if someone was interested in building an income stream from property that would allow them to leave their jobs within the next 12 months or thereabouts, and wanted to know why they should be listening to you today, what would you tell them?
Okay, well, that's quite an opening question. Well, I think there's lots of things, Azu. One of the main things, I guess, for myself is I've done lots of great things, but I've done lots of things not very well as well. So what I would say is I can tell people the things not to do, as well as some of the things maybe they should look at doing as well. So, and that's always part of the challenge, of course. You know, you've got to make your mistakes along the way. I've also done quite a wide range of different things in property. So I started off many moons ago doing something called sell and rent back, which is now you can't do unless you're regulated, but that actually worked really well. I've done title splitting, I've split buildings to flat conversions, I've used lease options, I've done rent to rent, I've done single lets, I've done multi lets, I've done all sorts of stuff really. So the thing I've done more recently that I found worked really well was I focus on LHA strategies, so that's housing allowance tenants, and I started doing that on a rent-to-rent basis, and I think rent-to-rent can work really well. So I've got a whole range of things that I've done, and I think that's something that I'm happy to share with people, and if people can get something from me along those lines, then I'm very happy to share that.
Brilliant. And just to clarify, when you say rent to rent, what do you mean by that for those who don't know?
Well, rent to rent is effectively a way of getting income from property without owning the property yourself. So you're renting from the owner and then you're renting it out in turn. So the way I've done it in the past, a lot of people do this with, you can choose whatever sector of tenant you want, whether you do it with professional tenants, housing allowance tenants, students, whatever. Effectively what you do, you rent the property off the landlord. You've got an arrangement, a management agreement, whichever way you set it up with them, and then you in turn rent it out to use your tenants. So you organise, you manage the property, you get the tenants in. But the way you do it is by being clever with the way that you rent out. You obviously, the aim is you getting more income in from the tenants and then you're paying the landlords. But you do it in such a way that the landlord's happy, you give him a guaranteed rent in such a way that he's not going to get any voids. You rent it out, so you're making a margin each month. You've got to do the work, of course, and get it set up, or you can get someone else to do the work for you. But you're making that margin on that each month. So it's a very good way of getting going. The nice thing about that is you don't have to pump a lot of money in that you would if you were putting in for a deposit, if you're buying a property, for example. So it's a low cost way of getting going.
So you're essentially almost acting like a specialist type of letting agent, as it were.
Yeah, you are. And also, by doing this, you learn a hell of a lot about management of property, about tenants, about lettings, about what landlords are looking for, and about investment generally. It's a really, really good way of learning and dipping your toe in the water without a massive outlay of money as well.
Okay, great. Well, the next question I wanted to ask you was, what's one thing about you that even your most avid followers probably don't know?
Okay, well, one yeah, where to go with that one? There's a few things I probably won't reveal. But
Keep it
I think
clean,
one
yeah.
thing was one thing actually, which led on to me getting involved seriously in property as I did, was I went off to South America for a year and a half actually. And when I was there, I became a football commentator in Argentina. So not everyone knows that I had a spell as an Argentinian football commentator. Even though my Spanish was awful, I tended to do that in English. So yeah, I did that for a spell out in Argentina.
Fantastic investor and football commentator. Brilliant. Right. Well, moving on to the next question, which is, if someone was starting to do property sourcing, because I know that's something that you do as well, what would you say is the first step that you would advise them to take to actually finding these properties to either do rent to rent, or whether they're going to do whatever investment strategy they're planning to choose? What would you say is the first step that they should take?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I always see property as a people business. It's not bricks and mortar. It's all about people. So for me, the most important thing is establishing the right people around you and good contacts. So in terms of property sourcing, what really has worked for me is having good contacts with estate agents in the area. So I operate in Bristol, and these contacts don't happen overnight. You really do have to work at these. So I started really seriously, I suppose, about 4 years ago. About 5 years ago, and the relationships with those agents have built over that time. So I think that's really crucial, and for people to take you seriously as well, you have to have credibility. You have to do what you say you're going to do. So the best bet, I think, is to start building those relationships as soon as you can. Understand what agents need, and make sure they understand what you're looking for. Be really specific. Help them to help you. And the other thing that you can do in terms of sourcing, and what I used to do a lot of, and do from time to time, is get some leaflets out there. So if you're looking to do rent to rents, for example, put out some little flyers and leaflets. Pick certain areas that you want to focus on, and pop those through, and you'll be surprised the sort of responses you get. Keep it fairly open, and you'll get more responses, rather than just trying to say, I just want to buy your property cheap. I think put something along the lines of, are you thinking of selling or renting your property, or something along the lines of, I'm looking to rent a house in this street. And that might be really useful for someone who's not quite sure what to do with a property, and just wants to talk to someone about different options. And certainly I've done quite a few like that, and they've worked really well.
So you find that leafleting still works even to today?
I think it depends what you're looking for. I think things like rent to rents, leafleting can work. Yeah. What I have found certainly in Bristol is, because things are selling pretty easily on the open market anyway, people almost don't feel the need to have to contact someone through a leaflet unless their situation demands that. So maybe they need to move really quickly. So it can do. I don't do so much leafleting these days, but I know people who do, and they still get results. And even though you might have to put quite a few thousand leaflets out, you only need one of those to come off to make it all worthwhile, of course.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Well, my next question for you is, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make in relation to property investing or property sourcing?
I'd probably say two things on that. The the first is just inaction and people wanting to do something and finding out ways of doing it and just really not taking the action. And that's the most important thing, is just whatever you're going to do is just do something, get going, and do it as soon as you can as well. The market's always changing, so the longer you leave it, the harder it's going to get, really. So I think the first thing is just to take action, make a decision on what you're going to do. A lot of people, the hardest thing is making the decision. Which way are they going to go? What are you going to do? I think spend some time thinking about it, but then take action. Don't leave it. And you learn so much anyway from just doing. So I think that's really important. And I think the other thing, from my point of view, is actually sometimes people get too greedy as well. They try and think that everything's going to happen overnight, and they get a little bit disillusioned if it doesn't happen straight away. You've got to be persistent in property, and also they perhaps try and get a little bit greedy, trying to get too much, maybe squeeze too much out of tenants, or not pay landlords enough if you're doing a rent to rent. It's got to work for everyone, and I think that's really important to understand. And if you're the only one that's making a good cut out of it, that's not going to be sustainable long term.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I think fail forward quickly, so just make a selection and of whatever strategy it is that you're going to do. Instead of going after course after course after course, just get the information and take action on it, learn from your mistakes, and move forward. And don't be greedy. I like that. That's good. Stop trying to get those huge discounts off of rent or off of purchases, and just go for something that works. As they say, win-win.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And once you get a strategy or you've made a decision, give it a go. Don't just do it for a few weeks or a few months and give up. Give it a good go for, I'd say, at least a year to give it a chance. And don't flip-flop, go from one thing to another thing to another thing. And I was guilty of that. I did so many different things without really focusing on any one thing. And as soon as I started just to focus on one thing, the results improved dramatically, because you get good, you get better at that one thing. Whereas I was okay at doing lots of different things, I got very good at one particular strategy.
That actually moves me very nicely on to the next question, which was, if you had to start all over again with no money to invest, what would you do differently, and what are some of the things you would do the same?
Okay, that's a good question. I suppose we've touched on rent to rents, and if I had no money at all, that's probably where I'd start, simply because you can get going with very little money on that. I think money is always useful, and the more money you have to start, the more you can do with it, and the less you're relying on other people, and of course the costs of borrowing money from other people. Having said that, if I had my time again, this is with a bit of hindsight, of course, which is a wonderful thing, but I would have borrowed more and done more at an earlier stage. I was quite cautious, I guess, so I wanted to make sure that I did what I had the money to do, because I started all this off when I was working with a full-time job, so I made sure everything was covered by the money I already had. Having seen the way the market has gone particularly, and also what you can do with property whatever the market's doing, I really wish I'd done a lot more a lot sooner, and I wish I'd borrowed the money to be able to have done that. I'm not suggesting everyone should borrow up to the hilt. I think you can leverage other people's resources and money effectively without putting yourself at risk. But if you're sensible about it, I really do think you can, by borrowing money, you can push yourself and you can go further a lot quicker than you would if you're just trying to use your own resources all the time.
Okay, wow, that's useful insight there, I think. Could you tell us, please, Nick, what's, in your opinion, what's one of the popular pieces of advice related to property investing in general that is completely wrong?
Yeah, okay, I'd say there's a couple of things. One is the whole concept about BMV, buying below market value, or getting good discounts off asking prices. It's always good to get discounts. You always want to buy at the best value you can. However, it all depends on what that asking price is in the first place. So I would say it's always important to make sure that what you're getting offers good value but gives you a good return. So there's properties that I've sourced and come across that we've bought one at the asking price 2 years ago, for example, when no one was buying things at the asking price then, and we bought it at the asking price because it was priced at the right price, and we made a fantastic profit on that. We actually did that for an investor, and it worked superbly and valued up really well. So look at the property, look at the price it's on. Sometimes things are priced to sell, and they are priced accurately. So, you know, I think sometimes people get hung up. They've got to get a certain discount off the asking price, or they've got to get a certain discount below market value. I think you want to make sure you're getting good value, and but it's more important that what you get, you can add value to it, and whatever you're going to do with in terms of your rental model, that it works for that. So that's the important thing to look at. Don't get too hung up on asking prices.
I think that's a really good tip there, because as part of the other interview series that we've done at successfulpropertyinvestmentsecrets.com, we actually walk through how to actually see what the ceiling is for the street. So have a look at the you've got a property on a street, you have a look at it, you see how much is the actual top end sort of valuation to give you an idea of what the street can afford, and then you have a look at what the asking price is. And if you think you know, by adding value to the property you can get close to that ceiling or that high end value, you can then from there work backwards as to what sort of discount you're looking at. And if that marries up with the asking price, as you said, sometimes properties are priced to sell, and instead of you having to ask for 30% off of the asking price, perhaps you only need something like 1 or 2 or 5%, or nothing at all. In your case, no discount at all. You can buy at the asking price because, as you said, it's priced to sell. So I think that's a fantastic tip there that you've just let us know.
I think you're right, Zoo. Yeah. And it's knowing your area, of course. You've got to know your area and the values and what things are worth to be able to do that. So, you know, get to know an area.
Well, if we were to pop out your crystal ball there, Nick, where would you, in your opinion, obviously, where do you see the property investment sort of in general heading in the next 6 to 12 months or so, and what do you think we can do to best prepare for it?
Okay, getting my crystal ball out. I suppose I'm going to talk from my experience in Bristol, but the way I see it is obviously prices are really starting to increase quite quickly, and I think some of the more traditional investing is becoming harder. So your traditional single lets, for example, your 2-3 bed terrace houses, always been fantastic good investment stock, are really shooting up in price. There's a mix of first-time buyers going for those, a lot of investors are going for those types of properties. So ultimately that means the return on your investment on these sort of properties is getting worse. So I think the thing to do is look at alternatives to that and get a little bit more creative. So it's either, if you are getting those sort of properties or looking to buy or rent even those sorts of properties, is looking at how you can be creative in the ways you rent them out. So whether you're doing that room by room, whether you're doing it on a particular model for housing allowance tenants or students or whatever you're doing, is get a little bit smarter about that and utilising the space in how you're going to do that. I think also I was talking to an agent in East Bristol just the other day, and his experience is that prices are going up he reckoned in average kind of terrace houses are going up about 5,000 a month at the moment, which is incredible. His view, and I share it actually, is that things will probably plateau out at some point. Not sure if they'll drop dramatically, but they'll plateau out. However, I'm not sure if they're really going to drop very much. So again, the sooner you can just get involved and get going and take action, I think the better. And the important thing is secure things, bulletproof things. So make sure you get a good, get a good income from the properties that you're doing. So whatever happens to prices, even if they do drop, I'm not sure if they will, but even if they did, you've still got that income secured coming out of your property. And I think that's the most important thing. The most important thing is to look at the return you're getting from the money you're putting in. And I think that's, everyone sometimes get a little bit too emotional about property, and you forget the numbers, and you just got to look at that return on investment. I think that's the crucial figure to look at. So just get creative, really, in what you're looking at.
Okay. So my next question then is, what's one of the least known ways to achieve a passive income from property that people often overlook or don't really know about? And
okay, the key sometimes is to get passive income from property. A lot of income coming through property isn't as passive as you would like it. There's always going to be management involved. So I think the key is whether you do that yourself or whether you get someone else to do it. Obviously, getting someone else to do it, I always feel they never do it quite as well as you, and you've got to pay them, so it's going to hit your margins a little bit. However, there's advantages in doing that as well. It means it frees you up to do other things. One way that certainly I've had experience of recently that works very well is where you've got properties on separate titles and you've got a freehold. And what you actually find is you can by manoeuvring the rents on that freehold, you can actually create quite a good value to the freehold, and you can actually then sell those freeholds. So you can still retain the actual properties and get the rental income. You can actually sell those freeholds on, which can create quite a nice little, very easy source of income from those. So that's something that's not a very well known route, but that can work really well.
Okay. Okay. Do you mind elaborating a little more on that? Because I'm not sure the listeners would be able to follow that entirely.
Yeah, sure. I probably didn't explain that very well. So, for example, if you own a block of flats, say 4, 5 flats or more, and there's a freehold to that, and each individual flat has their own lease, what you can do is you can set up the ground rent at a certain level on a yearly basis, and the service charges, and the ground rent can determine the value of that freehold. So obviously whoever owns the freehold is getting that ground rent on an annual basis. So so that in itself, of course, is a source of passive income.
Yeah.
However, so there's two ways. You can either own that freehold and then you're getting some passive income through the ground rent, or by if you've got control over that ground rent, if you increase or amend that ground rent not to anything ridiculous but to something that's just adding value, that increases the value of the freehold. So you can then sell on that freehold, and there's plenty of people around who are looking to buy freehold because they do provide passive income, of course.
Because freeholds are calculated on a multiple of the ground rent.
They're correct. They're based on a number of things, but typically they're based on the value of the ground rent and a multiple of that. Correct. So if you can. So if you can typically, if you had 4 flats, for example, and the ground rent for each one was £250 a year, So that's £1,000 ground rent total. Typically a freehold might be 10 times that freehold value. So straight away you could sell the freehold for £10,000.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, or you could own that freehold and obviously be getting the ground rent in as a passive income.
That's fantastic, actually. Oh, thank you very much for that bit of that golden nugget. So my next question is, if the listeners can do only one thing based on what we've talked about today, what would that be?
We touched on it earlier, Zoo, and I think take action. Most importantly, make a decision and then take action. That's whatever it is, and it doesn't always. I think you have to choose what's most appropriate to you, what fits best with your lifestyle, with the time you've got available, your resource you've got available, and perhaps your values as well. What appeals to you, but then once you decided, do it.
You know, I think that again, you've hit the nail on the head, and it's part of why we're putting together this successful property investment secrets interview series, because we get a number of different experts that go into each one of their given strategies. Some are cash flow strategies, some are creative buying and holding strategies, and buying and selling strategies. They go into each one of those in enough detail that if someone were to listen to one of those interviews, they could then take action. And what you're saying, throughout everything you've said today, is really take some actual big action. So moving forward, my next question is, what's the biggest breakthrough in property investing or property sourcing that you've had, and how did you discover it?
I think my biggest breakthrough was coming across a strategy that appealed to me. I could see that it would work. It would work in Bristol. It would work with rental yields, and I saw lots of benefits in it. And that was when I came across a strategy which involves housing allowance tenants and taking a very normal 2 or 3 bed house and putting 2 tenants in, but having them on separate claims. So each of those tenants would have 2 rooms to themselves, which meant that they were entitled to the 1-bedroom rate. So typically, a property that I was previously getting maybe £650 a month as a normal single let, I was suddenly upping the rent to just shy of £1,000 a month. Wow. So that massively increased the rental yields, increased the profit, and it really kind of turbocharged what I was doing. And also, for me, it was I enjoyed doing that because I felt that housing allowance tenants isn't everyone's cup of tea, but if you learn how to do it and do it well and do it properly and get a system around it, it can actually provide really, really good dividends. And for me, I felt like it was doing a little bit of good in the city, and it was helping out people that didn't really have much of a break. And it's led to working with lots of really great charities within Bristol, and it's that old win-win situation. Everyone's getting something back from it.
And how did you find out about this LHA rent-to-rent strategy?
Okay, well, this was many moons ago when I was on the property mastermind course, a year-long course. It wasn't actually through that; it was through someone who was on the course. So this is the power of networking, of course. It's who you know, isn't it? Who got involved in what's called the LHA network at the time. So this was back in 2000. Back in 2008, 2009. So there were very few people who were party to this knowledge. Not many people did anything with it. There were several people. A guy called Mike Frisbee, some people may have heard of, who went off and did it down in Portsmouth, and he's done that very successfully. I decided to come up and do it in Bristol. So the only thing then was that we knew the principle of how to do it, or rather we learned the principle of how it worked, but not actually all the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of how to do it. So I had to learn that for myself, and I had a pretty torrid first year where I made lots of mistakes, but really just kind of learned by doing it. These days, I think it's a lot easier. I think there's a lot more courses, a lot more you can learn from other people, and I would recommend doing that just to save making the same mistakes yourself.
And again, this is one of the things that leads us on to the next question, which is, what are some of the hardest lessons you learn with regards to finding a property you could invest in or do your investment strategy with?
I think make sure you put enough resource into it. If you're going to do something, do it well, do it properly. Don't do it half-heartedly. If you're going to put leaflets out, don't put just a few hundred leaflets out, put thousands and thousands of them out. Do it properly, and also allow enough time. Nearly everything I've done in property has always taken longer than I expected, would have hoped for. So always just allow yourself time. And sometimes if you're refinancing, for example, just make sure that you don't get caught out, and allow that time, that you're not going to get yourself into difficulty if things do take longer. So always have a plan B, I think, for that, and just give yourself enough time.
Brilliant. Now, I'm conscious of the time, so there's just a few other questions I wanted to ask you. So if you wouldn't mind sort of doing a rapid fire answer to these ones.
Sure, no problem.
The next question is, what's the quickest way to discover your gold mine area? As in, I'm thinking of a place to start investing in property. What's a quick way of figuring out where that area, where in the country, where in the city that I'm in? What's a quick way of discovering what that area might be?
Two ways. I think one is just copy what other people are doing. If they're already there, then they've done that work and due diligence. So just copy people. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's why do that if other people are doing it? And also just do your due diligence about a certain area. So have a look at economic factors that are going on in an area. Are the developments cropping up there already? Have a look at the type of shops and cafes, and are new things cropping up in an area? Is it an up and coming area? And talk to agents. A lot of estate agents get a really bad rap, but they are the best source of information about an area and what's going on. So go, if you're interested in a particular area, go and talk to as many agents as you can. Ask them for their advice. They love to give opinions, so feed on that. That's a great one.
That's a great one. I think that's brilliant. That also helps with what the point you made earlier, which was building relationships. So that's one way of how you can actually build relationships, is to go and seek advice from professionals. Brilliant. So the next question I have for you is, what's the biggest challenge relating to finding a property deal, and what would you say is a good solution for that?
I find, and this is really relevant at the moment actually, is essentially making the numbers work on a deal. So making that, I mentioned about the return on investment, that's the crucial figure you've got to look at. So making sure that's working, and if it doesn't, then have a look, get creative, look at the property. What can you do? Can you split it up? Can you do it room by room, or can you divide it into little studio apartments, for example? What can you do with that? You've got to find things that stack up. Take the emotion out of it. Get a little spreadsheet. Create your own deal analyzer. That's what we do. We've got quite a sophisticated analyzer that we've developed over the years. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But just think out of the box about what you can do with a property to make that return work.
Brilliant. Okay. The next or almost penultimate question really is, if someone is on a tight budget or not much time, what would you recommend them to do to help increase their property investment knowledge?
I think one of the quickest and easiest things, and this is what I did, is just go along to a property meeting. I host the PIN meeting in Bristol, Property Investors Network, but not just PIN meetings are great, but any property meeting, because you learn from other people that are there actually doing it in the area, your chosen area as well. So I would always do that. It's all about knowledge. It's all about getting educated, and it's not just knowledge, it's confidence as well. And the more you know and the more you talk to other people about how they're doing it, the more you'll grow in confidence, and then have the ability and the motivation to get out and do it yourself. So I would that's the easiest thing to do. And then going on from there, get more educated, go on, I'm not suggesting dive straight into year-long programs, but go on some one-day courses through the PIN network. There's a very good property investing quick start, which is just a one-day taster. You get loads of information. So something, it doesn't have to be that, but something along those lines if you really want to get involved. And it will save you money. It will save you a lot of money ongoing on your purchases or your renting or whatever way you want to go forward.
Fantastic stuff. So, well, look, Nick, thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic. If people wanted to get more information from you with regards to investing or sourcing or networking or anything like that, how could they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, probably the easiest way to get hold of me is on my email, which is nick, N-I-C-K, at bristolpropertypartnership.co.uk, or give me a call on my mobile, very happy, which is 07530 219 743. So
that's UK number, so any international listeners, that you need to put +44 instead of the 0 to get hold of Nick. That's very nice of you to give out your personal number there. So thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for having me, Izzy.
No problem at all. So everyone, thank you very much for listening. If you like this video, please make sure you like it and share it with a friend so that they can gain from the valuable information that Nick's so kindly supplied with us today. Also, we really do value your feedback and would love to hear from you, so please leave your comments beneath this video. We'd love to know what you think and answer any questions that you may have. For those of you that want to know more information with regard into property investing, the rent-to-rent strategy that Nick spoke about, or any other type of investment strategy or tip or information, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we'll be pumping out a lot more videos and interviews as time progresses. Or you can join us on our Google Plus page. Just go onto Google Plus and search for successful property investment secrets, or you can go over to our website and you can get some fantastic information there. So thanks so much.